Thanks, guys, for joining us. Today we've got a very special guest, Naas Botha. I was going to say the Prince of Flowers, but you can't call you the Prince of Flowers. That was Coral's Prince of Wings. But Springbok Flower, winner of 9 Currie Cup titles, I believe, and I think 280 drop goals in your Test career, if I'm right. Those are the stats I could find. But yeah, welcome, Naas. Welcome with us.
Thank you, boys. It's nice to be with you guys.
I think Gavin's going to probably start with the first question. He's been doing rugby a little bit longer than me. So,
well, I mean, no. My first question actually isn't from when I was a rugby writer. It was just nice when I first saw you play. I think probably about 11. It was 1977. I think that was your first season with Northern Transvaal. If I remember correctly, you actually won the Currie Cup that year. What is it like to win a title, like a major trophy? Because at that stage we played the All Blacks the year before that, but we were sort of excluded from international rugby that stage. So it was like the pinnacle just to, at that stage, win a Currie Cup. At the age of 19, that's a heck of a young age to win something that a lot of people take their whole careers to win.
Gavin, it's easy to look back at it, okay, but at that stage, I was like my first year. We had that Morne du Plessis incident at Loftus. That sort of, I want to say, cost Western Province the Currie Cup, if you can think back to that. Because what happened is we won that game, and that put us in the final against the Free State. And yes, you're absolutely correct by saying then that was about like a World Cup for a player in South Africa. Later we learned that there's a big difference between a World Cup and a Currie Cup. But, absolutely fantastic. And, at that young age, and to realize let's say the history of the Currie Cup, it was absolutely fantastic. But I think at that stage, really, to be honest, I just saw it as, playing the game that I liked, and I enjoyed it. And winning the Currie Cup was like the ultimate at that stage. And, that's just the way it was. But looking back at it, especially in my era, to be part of 11 Currie Cup finals and get 9 medals, I think then you can only measure that and say, okay, that was actually fine, nice career.
No, so
I know Brendan's going to ask you about the Morne. You're going to ask him about the Morne.
Yeah,
I just want to ask, before we go into the Morne thing, because we're talking about 1977 and we're talking about Brigadier Buurman van Zyl's era with the Bulls, and Tace Lawrence was the captain, if I remember correctly. There must have been a very different era to even when you finish your career in the 90s. We heard lots of stories about Buurman van Zyl sending the guys up a copy in Pretoria and all that. I don't know if that was true or not, but what was that like, sort of being a youngster coming into that kind of environment? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Bulls environment at that time, because we've heard so much about Buurman van Zyl.
Yeah, I was quite fortunate, to be honest. I played Northern Transvaal before I played for the University of Pretoria first team. So I actually played out of the under-20s, or got selected out of the under-20 scenario or setup. But, to be honest, a lot of guys had a lot to say, about what is good coaches. And, we see lately, and I must say I actually enjoy this lockdown, because suddenly from just a fine rugby player, suddenly people just keep voting and whatever. And I look back and I think, oh, okay, that's interesting, because the longer the lockdown, the better I become. So it's actually a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's putting a smile on my face, because I can't believe that lockdown can force us into all that. But the thing about Buurman van Zyl, okay, he was the first guy that he approached me on a Saturday in the change room and said, listen, I think I'm going to select you for Northerns, And I was like, oh, okay. Didn't really know too much about it, to be honest, okay? But you part off, and when you part off, you sometimes, I think, that's why I say, looking back, it's so easy, but at that stage, you just wanted to play rugby. And then he put quite a lot of confidence in me as a person, I think he was one of the better coaches. Another guy will have a different opinion, because for me, people always just look at the technical side of the rugby, and I think there's a lot of guys that technically know a lot about the game, okay, but they can't implement it because they just don't have that feel for another human being, and I always felt that was where Buurman van Zyl was absolutely different, if you had a problem, because I realized with Darius and a couple of the other guys, they had some off-field issues with girlfriends and whatever, and he just took it on straight. He said, if my player is happy off the field, he's going to be extremely happy on the field, okay? And that's the way he was. And I was in the change room where at that stage, he actually assisted the guy financially in his business. And he said to the guy, listen, whenever you have what, you can give it back, okay? No promises, nothing. He just said, okay, because he had a feeling that, and I just said it, if you off the field, if you're happy, of course you're going to produce more on the field because you're happy. And boys, excuse me 1 second.
Let the dog out.
Somebody put the dog in this room, and I don't know why. Okay, and I felt that was for me far more important than to teach me something about the game. That's one. Okay, and then he went on about fitness. He believed at that stage. Okay, what will make us better than any other team is just make the guys fitter. And that worked. Seriously, it worked, because we had some indifferent games or results, and then we'll fly back, and then he'll just tell the guys, phone your families and whatever, tell them you're not coming home. Then we went up to the Union buildings, and we went upstairs and whatever on a Sunday, and then guys, but at the end you actually played for Buurman. And I think that's the way you need to look at it. And he did absolutely fantastic. And the other thing that I did love about him is, of course, every player goes through a little bit of a slump, put it that way. And then he called in Naas Botha. And Naas Botha will come and he'll have a chat to me. So he was never scared of bringing in somebody else that might know maybe a little bit more than him regarding a position or whatever. And that was it. And I thought that's, for me, it's very clever, because at the end he managed people. And now you guys are a lot more involved with the game now, in the sense of what's going on about every player, who's moving where, whatever. And everybody is always telling you, player management. He did it in the 70s. So, it wasn't for me a surprise that guys felt that I will play for you. And he was a straight guy. He will say to you, listen, people outside Quintus and the guys, Neil Stein, they will write you off and write you to pieces, whatever. And he'll just call you in and say, I believe in you. Now, that's all you wanted to know, isn't it? And that's why I still believe he played a major part in my career, because in my first year, everything started off like a bullet train, and then it went a little bit in between. And he called me and he said, what's your problem? I said, my problem is I've got senior guys on my outside telling me what to do. I've got senior guys inside telling me what to do. I've got a captain telling me what to do. I said, I don't know what to do. He says, you go and do whatever you want. And he just called, I believe, the other guys in and said, please, just leave this guy alone. And it actually happened. And my first year actually kickstarted, I gather, my career as we know.
I think Naas, just on that. I mean, as Gavin said, we're going to go to the Morne thing quickly. It's strange now. I mean, given the way rugby is nowadays and how most people see it, if you watch that replay again, it was a good tackle. It was maybe a bit offside, if that. But I mean, I don't think what it caused in the country at that stage was almost like a bit of a mini North-South civil war type thing. That people were so upset about that. that, I mean, it's still now people talk about it nowadays. I just think maybe from your point of view, you on obviously the receiving end of that tackle, and it also made you and Morne, I believe, good friends after that.
Yeah, see the incident, the tackle. If you go to the tackle, okay, it wasn't offside. You can go and have a look. Thijs Lawrence get the ball and he's fooling around there and trying to run left and then right or whatever, and then give it to Tommy. So he couldn't be offside because there was no offside line. That's one. Secondly, I can recall the referee did say without arms. So it was a shoulder charge, okay? And that's why he penalized him. And then Pierre Edwards kicked it over. But let's be honest, it was a solid hit. And what people don't know is, or they might, I don't know, is that I actually heard this, the muscles here, okay? And I was quite heavily strapped for the next couple of games because I just had to play. In those days, you didn't say, listen, I'm a little bit not feeling well, I'm not playing. Because if you do that and the next guy steps in and it goes well, then you're in trouble. So you don't give anybody half a shot at your position, So they strapped me, and but at the end, it was part of the game. I never complained about the tackle till today. I never complained. There's nice stories about what this guy said to Morne and that guy said to Morne. But I think at the end, you just need to look at it. Was it all fine? Yes, it was all fine. Was he offside? I told you already. Absolutely not. Maybe if he closed his arms, like we all know, then it would have just been a fair tackle. And I would have been a little bit sore for a couple of days, but that's it. So nobody ever complained. That was public, okay? But you guys also know, in those days, North against South. That's all we had. We never had like a Springbok team that actually takes your attention and whatever away from. It was the Bulls against Province, and that was like that for many years. Even while I played, I know the derbies against the Lions or the Sharks or Natal then, and Natal later in the 90s took over as the team of the 90s or whatever. But in those days, it was Province against the Bulls, and that's it, and nothing else. And if something goes against the one team, the other team is making a big noise, or the supporters, not the team. The supporters made a big noise, and that's just the way you've got to look at it. Nothing wrong with anything in that whole incident, except that tackle gave us 3 points and put us in the final.
It did only happen once, didn't it? I had a funny feeling that you and Morne had another thing later, or am I wrong about that? It's just like in my memory. There wasn't a second one.
No, not at all. No.
Okay, maybe there was
a couple of interesting incidents. The one in Bloemfontein, but that was all supporters. But and then the Jan Els one, and the Jannie Els of Eastern Transvaal, that the tackle that put me out of the 82 final, things like that. But no, that was the only incident that I know of, unless I got knocked quite badly that I just can't remember that.
It was quite a legendary incident. Maybe that's why Gavin thinks it was twice. But just on
it might be that I'm remembering Morne getting knocked. I just remembered Morne got knocked out by Evan Janssen in the Currie Cup game back then. And maybe I'm confusing the two incidents. It was like a Kali Knutzer right hand that he knocked him out. So maybe I'm just confusing the two incidents and thinking that there were two Naas incidents. It was a separate thing.
No, the other incident, and that the other incident was the Jannie Els one in Bloemfontein, where he actually knocked me out of the frame of the TV. That was quite a good one. And so there's a couple, but if you look at it all in rugby terms, it was all part of the game. Nobody ever complained. Yes, of course, spectators are going to complain, and they're not really complaining. They just make sure everybody hears their opinion, if I can put it that way. And I was quite a believer that even in my days, if you pay You can do whatever. You can boo me. I had enough Nazis on the field. I had some apples on the field. At Ellis Park one day, full of half-jack going past my head. I had a little brandy glass, if you can put it that way, half in my leg at Newlands. But you know what? So what? At the end, I believe if we get 5 people that's interested in the game today that weren't there yesterday, it's all good. Good for the game.
I was going to say, if there was Twitter and Facebook now, those days, it would have been very interesting as well. But
yeah, but Brendan, you say that, but it's quite sad because even bad incidents sometimes it's good for the game, because it gets people worked up. It makes people talk, and I've never been one that distanced myself from an incident. I always think any incident is good for the game. What we don't need is we don't need foul play. We don't need punch-ups, especially a kick in the head, whatever. But in my whole career, I've never been in that situation to complain about things like that. But as long as it's inside the laws, if I can put it that way, that's fine. And of course, you want your supporters to support you. You want your supporters to get a little bit aggressive and aggro and noisy and whatever. And it's all fine. The only thing that you need to do, and that's the old cliches, just put more points on the board, then they're quiet.
Well, that's very true. I mean, but you were targeted quite a bit by teams. I mean, I know they didn't always get you, but they tried to a lot of the time. You became a bit of a punching bag, I suppose, for want of a better word, at times.
Yeah, you see, going on that statement, that's what happened end of 82, 83, okay? That's why I actually took a little bit of a detour by America, okay? Is because of that. I just felt, I play the game because I love it, and I'm serious about it. And I've always say, people say your best match, whatever. I said every game I played because I was just fortunate. I was fortunate to have a long career and whatever. But I felt at that stage I needed to make a change. So there wasn't anything outside that attitude. I needed to change because I got late tackled more than the normal guy. I got a little bit, if I half in a rack, I know somebody is knocking the nonsense out of me. That was just, but as I say, that was part of the game. And that's the way I looked at it. And then I did take a little bit of a detour and then back into rugby later. But that was the reason why I did make a little bit of a move.
I think sorry, Gav, we're going to come back to the American thing just now, but carry on.
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned, I think you said there were 9 Currie Cups won. Is that counting the one that was drawn with Western Province in 79?
See, I just say, if you look at played 11, okay, 1-7, 2 draws, but I mean, it's you're not losing. So at the end, it's a medal. And if you look at it, it's 11 finals, 9 medals. That's the way I look at it. But 79 against Province, tough game, man. Down at Newlands. But you see now how nice it is now, because if you finish top of the log, you play at home. We had to go because like 60 years ago they played a final at home against that team, so suddenly you had to move. So things did change, I believe, for the better, because I was a strong believer that if I finish top of the log, I should have all the advantages, because that's why there's a league. I'm not talking cup finals. Cup finals for me should always be neutral venues. Seriously, because you can get into a cup final by whatever, by decision, whatever. But if you win the league, okay, like the Currie Cup League, you should get all the advantages. But in our days, it just never worked like that. That's why I like the change where it is now. But while we're on this, I still believe, after whole season, after semi-finals, final, if it's a draw, I would still say the team should settle for a draw. This thing, we need a winner at all costs. I disagree with that. Yes, in cups, yes, that makes sense, but not in the league.
Oh, that's true.
You mentioned 2 draws. Are you counting 89? I thought Johan Hennis played flower. Did you play in the 89 final in Cape Town?
Yeah, I did. I did. Yeah, I played. I didn't play 82, 83, 84. I played 85. We didn't make it into the final in 86. And then I played 87, 88, 89, 90, 91.
Okay, so there was the two draws.
Yeah, yeah.
I know we're probably jumping around a little bit here, but we talk about the rivalry with Western Province here, Naas. I don't think it's a well-known fact that you almost ended up at Stellenbosch, so you could have actually played for Western Province.
Yeah, we actually had a chat about, you won't believe, about a week ago regarding that. A number of the guys that went on the 80 tour to South America. Okay, we were sitting around, fooling around, whatever, and we had a discussion regarding, universities and whatever. And at the end, it came out, I think about 4 or 5 guys in that team actually applied for a registration at Stellenbosch. But, and then Dr. Craven, and I might not be 100% correct by saying, but he then sort of said the guy that did the registrations at university, and he didn't really see eye to eye, and he believed that some of the rugby guys, if they see rugby, they just said no. But I must be honest, and I did apply for that, but I'm a very proud Tukkie guy. I love Pretoria University, what it stands for. I don't know too much about it today, but it's still my university, and I love every second that I've spent there.
Yeah, you got a question, or was carry on?
No. I thought you were going to ask. Sorry.
Okay, maybe let's go back to the your test debut, Naas, and maybe talk a bit about that. That must have been quite interesting those days. There wasn't that many tours.
Yeah, I would say I was quite fortunate in the sense that I played some curtain races for the 1970 All Blacks. Yeah, okay. And then I played quite a number of curtain races for the 76 All Blacks in South Africa. We won't talk about 74, and we won't talk about 72, okay, England and the British Lions. Okay. But then, what was more special in a sense that it wasn't on a rugby field, it was at the Wanderers. So that was quite an interesting one. But, I tried to explain to somebody, people always think that your career is just sunshine and roses, I think, okay? But if you go back, okay, I started in 77, so let's be fair, okay? Your first year is the year that you try and make a name, okay? The second year is the more difficult one, because then people sussed you out and they know what your strong points and your weak points, and then they start concentrating on that. But, if you go back, and I always say, and I try and explain to the kids, don't always think everything is just fine, because it's not fine, but it depends on how you handle it. And we had this discussion also a week ago, and I explained to them, like in 78 against the Gazelles against, I think it was the Eagles of America. And it's the South African under 2014. You all know that. But then I was put on the bench because a Springbok played. Listen to a Springbok played. And I think, okay, is that really fair? It doesn't matter. I like the veteran, so I didn't mind him playing. But I mean, he was a Springbok. A Springbok's not supposed to play for the under 24s, okay? Then you go on 79. Springbok played junior Springboks. First time I heard that, normally if you're a Springbok, you're a Springbok. You don't go and then play, for the junior Springboks. And all I'm trying to say through that is, I could have easily turned around and said, this is nonsense. I disagree with this. But it never bothered me, and I'm serious. It never bothered me. I didn't play SA schools, because in those days we had 3 semesters, okay, the Transvaal school. So we had a Transvaal week, and the guys had a Craven week. So because of that, we weren't part of the Craven week. So I didn't play SA schools. I could have, to be honest, I didn't even know then it was that important, to be honest. Oh, okay, I didn't make SA school, so that's fine, But I mean, it's in those times you could have said, "Oh, this is nonsense" or whatever, but it never even crossed my mind. To be honest, I just okay. Then I just keep playing, And one night at Loftus, one of the national selectors came up to me and he said, you have to change your attitude. And I was like very surprised. Okay, I was like, what? He's like, you never ask for advice, and he was going on about it. And luckily, Burger Gelnes actually walked in and said, "Listen, just leave this guy alone." Okay. And I don't know if that's the reason why it took Burger a little bit longer to become a Springbok, but that's the way some of the selectors felt at that stage. And I was like, what does he actually mean by saying that? And I never really figured it out. But, I think Buurman said to me, you play the way you want to play, okay? Some other guys felt that I should have played differently, okay? Or maybe, but at the end, I had one thing in my mind, seriously, boys. As long as I win, I keep you quiet. That's all, okay? And that's why, yes, looking back at it, yes, I could have done this differently. I could have done that differently. It's like the kids, the one girl picked up the other day. She said, what, 200, like, I think 280 or something, 270 something drop kicks and whatever. Now, maybe somebody else might look at it and say, hey, it's 270 opportunities you took away from maybe scoring a try. Whatever. I don't care. Looking back at it, I don't care. As long as we had more points than the opposition, doesn't matter how. In those days, that's what for me, that was the beginning and the end. That's it.
Well, maybe it's a good time.
You were talking about the Jaguars test. Obviously, we were talking about the Wanderers. So you played against the Jaguars, which is really the Pumas, but they came out as a sort of South American team. And then you went into I suppose you could say the first big traditional tests were against the Lions. And the reason I jumped in now was because you mentioned the thing about the kicks and the passes. You didn't score tries off the 280 drop kicks were 280 scoring opportunities. When the Lions came out, I remember there was a rugby writer by the name of John Reason. Yeah. He gave you the nickname of Naas Botha. And when they came out here, like everybody expected the Lions to be the running team and the Boks to be the sort of kicking team, which actually turned out to be complete nonsense. Because I remember that test at Newlands where Devon scored the winning try. I think you guys scored 5 tries to 1, yet you only won by 4 points. I think it was 26-22. In Bloemfontein, Gijsie Pina was the hero. And so, I mean, you must have passed the ball a lot. I mean, those guys in that series, I mean, you guys basically beat them with running rugby from what I recall.
Yeah, but you see, that's why, it's sometimes people say, oh, he did that. Okay. And then everybody just jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, that's all he could do. But, at the end, I was fortunate to be involved in a series against the British Lions because I believe there's a couple of things that a rugby player should achieve if he wants to be a serious rugby player. One is to play against the British Lions because it only happens like every 12 years, I think. Okay. Mm. Then to tour New Zealand. I was very fortunate to do that. Unfortunately, the result was a little unfair to us, but let's leave it like that. I was fortunate to play in New Zealand against New Zealand. And then to win a Currie Cup. I still think it is something. I know rugby changed quite a bit, and your better players sometimes don't even get an opportunity to play Currie Cup at the moment with the guys playing overseas and whatever. So life changed quite a bit. But in those days, that's what we could aim for. And that's why I say I'm happy with what I achieved. Here and there, as I mentioned, you can always look back and say, I would have liked this. Maybe sometimes there was 1 or 2 opportunities for the ball to go wide or whatever. But, winning. If you don't want to win, why hanging around, and go and do something else if you don't want to win. And yes, but as I mentioned, fortunate enough, Dani Gerbers, Morne du Plessis, Devon Servantine, Tommy du Plessis, Gijsie Pina, Johannes, Raymond, I can just keep going on and on about good players that I had around me. And I think at the end, we all maybe achieved what we set out to achieve somewhere along the line.
I was going to say, Gavin actually picked up on the point I was going to say, is that there are these urban legends that have gone around your career. One of them being that you didn't pass. There were the jokes that came around. I'm sure you've heard them all by now. The other one was that you always came off the field with a white pants as well, even in muddy games. Just from a person, I mean, I know you didn't worry about those things too much, but I saw them resurface now in the lockdown as well. I mean, how did you handle all of those?
It didn't really bother me because at the end, I was there to do a job. That's the way I looked at it. Okay, nothing else. As long as I do my job properly. I heard a guy the other day just mention something in a clip where he says, everybody goes on about tackling. Okay, Buurman had an attitude. Seriously, I need you on your feet. I don't need you on the ground. And you need to understand, if you go down, somebody else is going to get you. Okay, so it wasn't anything scared, and I didn't want to, whatever. It was just in those days, that's the way we played. And the guy sort of mentioned, he said, okay, now let's be honest. And he mentioned Robbie Blair, the veteran, Skalk Nodea, Gavin, great flyers. But not one was really this or well known for this crash tackler, because in those days it just wasn't part of. It was part, but not part of. As long as you make sure that your direct opponent or whatever stays and you stay in your channel, whatever. But Buurman had also an attitude that if a lock disappears in a line-out, let's say number 2 runs around, his attitude was our number 2 should tackle him at the back of the lineup. Because what are you waiting for in the lineup? What are you standing for? You're not part of the game if that guy goes, you go. And things like that. And I've always thought, tongue in cheek, say, let's be honest now. If a guy like Gert Smal, Teun Stoffberg, Morne van Zyl runs straight onto the fly, do you really think you're going to tackle him, that they put him on a stretcher and carry him off? That's never going to happen in any case. And then you look at, but it's in our days. So we're not comparing. That's one thing I hate, where people try and compare this era to that era. It's different laws, whatever. You just do your job. And that's why I say, the way I looked at it is I've done my job. And in those days, I gather some, washing powders are just better than others. Maybe I just used a better washing powder. That's maybe why my shorts were always clean. I don't know. But I didn't run onto the field to impress you by, I could have slipped and slide and whatever. And for what? Just do your job. And that's the way I looked at it. And seriously, that's the way I've always looked at it. And as long as I believe I did my part, like I expect Uli Smith to throw the ball in, I expect Adolf and Adrie Gelnes to catch the ball, Gert Smal to win the second fight. You do your job. Now, my job was, I gather, part of it is to get points on the board, get the opposition pin into the 22, whatever. And who cares about a clean jersey or shorts or whatever? Not me.
If you'd played in this era, I mean, what's very different about this era is that, I don't know what you did in your day, but I mean, the guys spend months in the gym. Like, okay, they don't have much of an off season now, but when you're a young player and you go to the academy or whatever, you spend ages like building yourself up physically. I mean, it is a different game. So if you were playing today, you would have done those things, and then you would have had that different angle to your game.
That's what I believe, but it's debatable. I believe now it is part of, but I'm still a great believer that rugby is about feel. It's not like if you can bench 180, you're a great rugby player. And I think sometimes some coaches believe that. If you can do this in the gym, you're a better rugby player. No, you can take the knocks better. You might survive a little bit longer, whatever. but you're not a better rugby player. A rugby player, for me, it's still up here. That's where you play the game. And that's why sometimes I look at and ask me, because, you guys analyze every game. I've been doing it for over, 25 years now, looking at why this, why that, why are you better than the next guy? Why did you do this? It's the way I looked at my career. Why did you sometimes do this? Why did you go for the 5 drop kicks? Why didn't you do this? But at the end, we're just trying to contribute to the game. But I know in my days, I was told, go and win the game. Okay, that's it. Today, somebody else is trying to tell you how you need to go and win a game. Now, that doesn't always make sense, you follow, and we've seen it. We've seen some Super Rugby finals where our teams go in and it's a running team. We all know that. And then it is like 87th. It's the worst conditions you can imagine. Then they still want to play that game. And I think, but sorry, boys, that's just, you have to adapt. That's the thing. And I don't think we always adapt. That's why we get scores like 57-0, because we suddenly realize, or we lose to Japan. If you take the Japan game, it's a fantastic example for me. In the first 15 minutes, we realized we're in trouble, because these guys were just going extremely low, tackle the guys and spoiled a little bit, whatever. And we kept on doing the game plan instead of say, hey, let's sit back. Okay, we put them inside their 22, and we just killed the game. But that's why I'm not anti game plans, but I still believe we need to adapt. And I don't believe that you have to be the biggest guy to be a good rugby player. You can still be. There's a Cheslin Colby that just showed everybody. Don't tell me you need to be bigger than a Lomo to play rugby. That is absolutely nonsense. And I think rugby, and that's why I'm always had this fascination about the game, is it accommodates every single guy. The little fatty, the shorty, the tall one, the well-built, the whatever, the fast guy, the slow. It really accommodates. And I don't think I believe we started moving a little bit away from that, and some good rugby players just don't get the opportunities to make an impact.